thank you all for joining us for Guidance for SMEs webinar series, which is a weekly session to explore key areas that SMEs are having to consider right now in response to the impact of COVID-19. So as a quick preview, next week's session, you'll be seeing a slide for this any minute now, we'll be looking at the financial angle of how businesses are responding to the impact of COVID-19. We'll be joined by Pippa Clark and Hazel Tucker from Bishop Fleming Chartered Accountants, and they are going to be sharing their perspectives on the role of financial technology in driving your business forward. We're also planning a further session, which is going to be at 11 o'clock on Thursday, the 11th of June. So this is going to be a summit approach and is going to bring back all the experts that we've had presenting in the series so far. This is going to be a great opportunity to reflect on the latest developments across all the areas we've covered, and we'll share more details on that session with you nearer the time. So before we move on, there are just a few housekeeping points I'd like to share with you. My name is Siobhan Lavelle, and I am a specialist in reputation management, crisis and change communications. I am moderating today's webinar and will guide us through our session. So as you'll know from previous webinars, your microphone is on mute, and that's so that everybody can hear our speakers clearly. However, your questions are really important, and we would like you to submit your questions today. It's going to be a great opportunity to ask questions about the HR challenges facing your businesses at the moment. So please can I ask that you use the Q&A feature, submit your questions as we go through, and I will be putting them to our speaker towards the end of today's session. And finally, if you're using Twitter today, you can see the event hashtag on your screen. So we're shortly going to be joined by Alison Lambert. Alison is an HR consultant at Commissioning HR and is also the chair of the CIPD in Devon and Cornwall. So Alison is going to share some essential insights with us into the latest HR considerations for SMEs who are clearly having to deal with a multitude of new and complex processes at the moment. Hello Alison, and welcome to today's webinar. I'd also like to welcome back Julian Wills, Managing Director of TimeWade and founder of Technology for Success. Good morning, Julian.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Siobhan.
Good morning. So, Alison and Julian, I'd like to start today's session with a question for you both. Companies right now are making decisions about going back to their workplaces, maybe combining employees working from different locations with home working. So amidst all of this change, where is technology best placed to support employees and effective HR practices? Julian, would you like to respond first? Perhaps you can give us some insights into where businesses should be looking at tech solutions in the HR area.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, I think obviously given the sort of dispersed nature of our organisations right now, technology is clearly playing a huge role currently. I think obviously from a HR perspective, we're using tools like video messaging, etc. That it's becoming the new norm to hold those company meetings, those one-to-ones with your team and employees, etc. And I think generally the use of sort of platforms and central portals for kind of sharing and accessing information is ever more important right now. I think one area that we are seeing quite a big uptake on is the use of electronic signatures. So not only for normal sort of day-to-day operations, but specifically around HR, where we're seeing businesses who have perhaps had to engage more with their employees recently, and I think getting that letters sent to employees and signed is vitally important. So being able to electronically sign something and get it returned straight away, I think is having a clear advantage and really speeding things up. But yeah, I think really interested to hear Alison's sort of opinions on how technology is helping right now.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Julian. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of the communication out there, getting employees to sign documents. What's going to be coming into the forefront more and more is that deeper consultation that we're going to be needing. It's quite evident that we need to consult with employees about returning to the workforce. We need to get their engagement on what that looks like. I'll be touching on that later on in this morning. But you know, that's where as well technology is going to be really, really key for communication and consultation.
Thank you. It's interesting how much we're having to change and evolve our practices right now. So thank you both for your insights there. Alison, I know you have some really interesting information to share with us right now. So I'll hand over to you to talk us through your slides.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, it's HR in the new normal. This is what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about having to transform our workforce in a crisis. This has been forced on us, so we're reacting. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what is happening now to set the scene and what is happening out in businesses in terms of HR. We're going to be looking at planning for the future. That is something that is prevalent right now. And then we're also going to be touching on what are going to be some of the lasting impacts of this crisis.
Alison, before you proceed, I think some of our listeners are having a little trouble hearing you. So I don't know whether you're able to get closer to your microphone, but okay. I think that would help people to be able to follow what you are saying. Also, we seem to have lost your video for the moment, but we will try and get that back.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. We're embracing all our technical challenges today. So sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I think as long as people can hear you, that would be great. If you're able to switch your video back on, that would be helpful. But if not, let's just proceed.
Can you see my video now?
Yes, we can. That's great. Okay. Thank you so much.
I don't know why that disappeared. Okay,
that's fine. You're back. You're good to go.
Can you hear me clearly? Right, I
can hear you much more clearly now.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
And this is the situation with technology, and this is the situation with HR. And communicating with our employees at the moment. We've got these challenges all the time, haven't we? So the current situation at the moment, we've got businesses that are having different responses to COVID-19. Each industry is different, each business is different. What we are seeing is that businesses are reacting in a crisis. They're rapidly responding and reacting. What we're finding, or what we found, is that some businesses were quickly able to use technology to implement home working in the very, very early stages. And for some businesses, it was almost like that seamless transition. Other businesses had to get their technology in place and maybe take, a short lag to do that. We've had some businesses that have had to adapt to different ways of working. Say they've redeployed staff, they've changed the way that the things they do. So, for instance, I've been seeing out there some businesses that, you've got the hotel industry, you've got restaurants industries, they can't carry on as normal. So the staff have changed mode, they've done takeaways, you've started this huge delivery service out there. So people have been working in a different way and responding differently. Then we've got this whole cohort of workforce that are working from home, but obviously technology is absolutely prevalent there. And we've got the challenges of home working. You've got, in people's homes, they might have separation from others working at home. So you might have 3 or 4 people in one household all working from home together. You've got homeschooling going on at the same time. These are all the kind of employee challenges that we're having day to day. And you've got people that are just making do. They're working from home, but you can't really say that everybody's being 100% productive, but does it really matter? As long as there's some output, they're engaged, you've just got to accept that we're all just making do at the moment. And then we've got the new F word. That has been, I don't know what to say. For my HR professionals, I just feel really sorry for anybody in the HR industry. But we've got the F word, we've got furlough leave. So yes, we've had written agreements that have needed to be in place. We've needed technology for that. And that has been quite a strain. And then with those people that aren't home working or working at all and are on furlough, are they disengaged at the moment? And then you've got to think about re-engaging them within the workforce. So what are you currently doing to keep communicating with them? So yeah, the current situation is totally mixed, and every industry and every business will be different. So I just want to talk a bit about employee engagement. What is really important throughout this whole crisis is that you maintain engagement with the whole workforce, and we cannot say the words communicate enough. What we are finding is that people are having virtual meetings galore. We've got Teams meetings going on, we've got Zoom, we've got Google Hangouts. I joined something new the other day. I joined Google Duo. I'd never heard of Google Duo, but I'm still doing some casework. I had to join a meeting with about 4 different people, and the only way that the technology across the different businesses could do that was via Google Duo. So we all had our phones up and we conducted the meeting as normal, so it works. You've got Facebook groups going on as a way to communicate as well, and then some people are communicating via WhatsApp. And then the other kind of thing around this is a lot of this needs to be manager led. So you want the group comms for your home business, but your manager should still be checking in with their teams. You want peers checking in with each other. And you've also got, in terms of employee engagement, while people are working from home, there's that isolation. Some people need company, and they just need to know that their kind of like peers and their colleagues are there. So if people are starting to be disengaged, another thing that you can do is just have a FaceTime or something running in the background. So you're working, but your colleague's there with you. So you can, every now and then you can ask questions, you can talk about what you're doing. So that's just kind of like a great way to keep people engaged. And then we've still got emails, we've still got people collaborating on documents at one time. You know, so all of these things to keep engagement needs IT, needs that communication. Another thing that is coming out of this as well, particularly for those that are furloughed, is training, because it's quite clear now that with furlough, employees can do training. So with this, we're seeing a lot more online training going on. We're also seeing some businesses having to retrain staff because they're adapting to what their new ways of working. So all of these things are happening at the time. And then, like today, we've got webinar after webinar going on as well. Okay, so moving to the future a little bit.
Alison, before you move on from that, if you wouldn't mind, if you're able to go back a slide, I have a question for you. Before I go into the question, I will just say that some people are still struggling to hear you. I know that's frustrating for you to be told that, but if you're able to move as close to your mic as possible, I think our viewers would really appreciate that.
Okay.
So employee engagement, this is something that is extremely close to my heart, and I do an awful lot of this with my clients. And I'm really loving what you're saying about how we use the technology to enhance that communication that is kind of springing up in numerous new ways. I'd like to ask you a little bit more deeply on that, if I may. That obviously it's one thing for managers to communicate with their colleagues and for that kind of linear type of communication to go on, and for people to feel that that's enough and that they are perhaps bringing employees into the mix by communicating on a kind of almost a broadcasting level. But I think what we also need to consider, and what you've just touched upon, is how we work together and how we communicate with our peers, how managers communicate with colleagues, how colleagues support each other. But that's a big ask when people are struggling themselves. So how can we help colleagues to support others when they might need support themselves? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think it's about being open and honest and saying to everybody, how are you today? And I think that should be the first question that you always ask when you touch base with somebody. How are you? What do you need? How can I help? And sometimes those little words is all that somebody needs to just open up, and also for that individual, it's okay to say, do you know what, I'm not having a good day today, you know. And we need to accept that, you know, and people are going to come in dips and waves for that. You know, what might be a good one day will not be such a good day the next, or might develop throughout the day. So all the time checking in, how are you? What can we do to support you?
I think that's really interesting. It's that genuine question, isn't it? And, you know, allowing people to know that it's okay to say that you're having a bad day. And people have been tremendously adaptable, and you've touched on that. But, you know, encouraging people to feel free to say, I'm having a really bad day. You know, let's have a chat about something completely random and have a break. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's going on in your life? What's going on in the background? You know,
Sure.
because there'll be a multitude of things.
Great. Thanks, Alison.
Okay, thanks for the question. Okay, so in terms of workforce planning then, this is about assessing the medium to long-term impact on your business. There's some really, really fantastic free tools out there. Obviously, I'm a HR professional. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, the CIPD for short. If you Google CIPD and go onto their website, I would absolutely recommend at the moment that any employer keeps up to date with what they are publishing. They have got a fantastic amount of tools to help all businesses. Normally, these things are closed to just HR members, but now they're opening them up because they realise that the massive impact this is having on businesses. And they have developed a digital workforce planning tool that you can go through to help you assess the impact and help you think about the different things that you can do for your business. So I'd recommend you do that. But in terms of assessing the medium to long-term impact, obviously we need to be looking at the financial impact on your business. What does that look like? Does it mean that you can maintain and support the current workforce and in its current shape and form? Or are you finding that your business might be reduced longer term, or that you need to adapt what you are doing for longer? Okay, and that all of that might have implications on your workforce. And then you need to think about, are you able to return to normal business pre-COVID-19, or is it going to look different? And again, what is that financial impact? We're now really, really talking about, can we return to the workforce, to the workplace safely? And obviously the government this week have brought out their guidance on that. We're looking industry by industry, we're looking sector by sector. So I'll talk about that in a moment, but what we need to do when we're looking at all of these assessments is engaging with the workforce. First of all, you have to inform them. So, you know, is there going to be an impact? Inform them what that looks like. Engage, so get their ideas, because everybody, you'll be really surprised when you start that engagement what ideas people might come up with. And at some point you will have to start consulting with them about these changes. So, you know, you'll have to maybe start consulting about reductions, about redundancies, or about changes in redeployment. And all of this, we're going to need to use technology to our advantage to be able to do that. What is prevalent is that we're going to likely to be looking at a staged return to the workplace. Without a shadow of the doubt, we're going to need to be doing that. So in terms of that, what I said a minute ago is that there is government sector specific industry guidance. The guidance is absolutely massive. You cannot break it down. You have to go and look for your particular industry on the guidance. You have to read it, you have to digest it. The CIPD have just this week published their 3 key tests, which I think are really refreshing, really clear. So first of all, in terms of bringing people back, is it essential? So if somebody can continue to work from home, they should do so for the foreseeable future. Okay, so roles that are working well from home with technology, if there is absolutely no essential reason to bring them back, then don't. Continue as you are doing. Then we need to look at, is it sufficiently safe? So all employers have a duty of care to make sure that the workforce is safe, that the workplace is safe. And obviously with COVID-19, we're dealing with something that we have never dealt with before. This is huge on a global scale. We are learning more about the disease day by day. So in terms of it being sufficiently safe, employers should take time with gradual returns. They need to test health and safety measures to ensure that they can work with large numbers before encouraging more of the workforce back. So that's why we say it should be this gradual return. Test and measure all the time. Check in with your employees, what's working for them. Check in with them, ideas that they've got to make the workplace even safer. And then the last one in terms of bringing people back, which is absolutely essential, is it mutually agreed? You know, there is no forcing people back, but to make sure that it's mutually agreed, again, this is where that communication, that consultation and that engagement comes in. So we need a clear dialogue to be able to understand employees' concerns. And that won't be just about concerns globally, that will be individually. So each individual will have their own needs and worries that we need to take into account. You know, some of the things that we need to really understand, how is this impacting on our individuals? You know, what is going on in their lives? What are they really, really concerned about coming back to work? So the employee impacts, if we move on to that, is really, really key in terms of supporting the workforce. In terms of moving people back, obviously we've got this huge dilemma in that we have got parents that will have childcare responsibilities. Until schools go back, until childcare opens, which there's talk about at the moment, but actually when you look deeper, schools are saying, well, hang on a minute, I don't know if we can do this, I don't know if it's safe. And trade unions are also doing that. So although the government has given guidance and direction that certain key stages are to go back, whether that will happen, we don't actually know yet in practice. So it's quite important at the moment that engaging with your workforce, you find out who will be able to still work and who is going to have childcare issues. And that will be, in terms of your workforce planning, that will help you with your priorities on bringing people back. And then we've also got this other category of people, which is, you know, tremendous impact. Those with underlying health problems. You've got those employees, there's 1.4 million in the UK that have had letters that have been told to shield. So that means that they've got underlying health conditions that if they get COVID-19, that they will deteriorate quite rapidly. And, you know, they have been told not to go out. They've been told not to leave the property. I don't mind sharing with you on a personal level that this impacts in my household. So my husband is one of those people. So, you know, for us, we don't go out. I don't go out either, because there's absolutely no point in me bringing that risk back into the home. So, you know, you've got to think about, have you got any employees that are shielding, but also have you got any employees that are in a household where somebody is shielding? It's all those kinds of informations that will help you inform how you're going to return the workforce gradually. And then also prevalent, I would say, to everybody at some stage is mental health. So supporting your employees' mental health and well-being, and really understanding, as me and Siobhan just touched on now, is how are people really feeling? How are they feeling today? How do they feel about the future? What are What are their worries? What are they scared about? And it might not be that you as an employer have got all the answers, but you need to know, you need to understand, and they need to be telling you as well. You need that open dialogue. So
Alison, can I come in with another question there?
Of course.
So I think the supporting mental health aspect is something that employers are taking more and more seriously, which is fantastic, and as it should be. I'm hearing more and more about technical solutions that can help and enhance what employers are doing. So, apps that help staff track how they're feeling and access resources, for example, and online platforms where employees can anonymously seek help. But in a way that protects their confidentiality, but also allows them to share how they're really feeling. How are you seeing that? Are you seeing that developing? And do you think that there is a place for that formal mental health support, and that should be something that perhaps SMEs are looking at the moment?
Absolutely. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, you're right, Siobhan. There are a lot of free resources out there. We publish some of those on our newsletter, so as soon as we find out about them, we publish them. There's Mind that are putting out a lot of free resources that you can tap into. There's the NHS that have got their resources as well. There are helplines being set up. The community as well, the community sector have really stepped up. I work with a lot of organisations and it's having a massive impact on their mental health. So the community sector are stepping up and supporting remotely. Normally they've supported face to face, but now everything is remote. And then the other thing, I guess, that we should touch on here is domestic abuse. There are reports that domestic abuse, unfortunately, is increasing. The government are putting funding into that. I work with some organisations that support domestic abuse, and again, that people are stepping up, and there is help out there. So it's a case for employers to understand what that help can sign employees. I'm not saying that they've got the magic wand to solve their problems, but if they know about it, they can find out where they can signpost to them.
Great. And how can employers help their colleagues realise that this won't affect how they're seen within the workplace, and that it's a good thing to access this support? Because I can imagine some people might feel hesitant to dive into some of these resources if they think it might look poorly on their employment record, for example.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that's all about being a good employer, isn't it? And I would advocate that. Yeah. Employers just need to be genuine about this.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. Yeah, that's a really difficult question to answer. I feel bad for asking you that, but no, but you're right. It's being genuine.
It's absolutely fine. But it is about being that good employer. You have that duty of care. We are going through a crisis, and at the end of this, you want your employees on board, and you want them with you. So the more that you can support them, the more that they will be back helping you when you are up and running and functional again.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Alison.
Okay, thanks. Good question. Nice challenging question.
Sorry.
That's fine. So lasting impacts, the future, who knows? Who knows what the future holds, but I would say that we have some massive learning opportunities around this. So what have we learnt? I'd say we should know our employees better. Simple things. We should know what their homes look like now. How many times, have we been on a video call with them where we see people sat at the kitchen table, you see what their kitchen looks like, are they working from the bedroom? You're starting to get that real insight into everybody as an individual. You're seeing, have they got a dedicated space to work from home? We're seeing that massive insight into employees' family lives. We're seeing, we're understanding more about, they've got children, they've got families, they've got pets. You know, I've been on so many Teams calls, webinars, whatever, where, you know, someone says, oh, sorry, that's the dog barking. I've got to let the dog out. Oh, the cat's just jumped on the table and joined the meeting. Does it matter? It's great. You're getting to know your employees better. We're finding out, do people live in tidy homes, not tidy homes? All that insights that you don't normally have about your employees. Obviously, we're knowing more about people's underlying health issues. I'd probably say that we should have really known more about employees' health anyway, but at least this has brought it out into the open. We're knowing about, in terms of adaptation, we're knowing about our employees, who's resilient, who's fragile. We're knowing about our employees, who's of the, actually, I can do this, we're just going to adapt, I'm going to help you transform this, I've got all these ideas. We're knowing so much more. We're knowing those that can use technology and those that can't, and just needed a little bit of a guiding help and a hand on that, and that's fine, it's not a problem. We're understanding about people that can work alone and people that are saying, do you know what, I'm thriving with this, I've got no distractions, I'm not working in an office with other 10 people where there's constant talking, chattering, interruptions. I've been able to get my head down and crack on, and I love it. And then we've got other employees, as I touched on earlier, that are saying, I can't work alone, I need someone to talk to, I just need some human interface. So I would say use this as an opportunity to continue to treat your employees as individuals. We don't stop being us when we come to work. I know that a lot of employers think that we should, and they want everybody to leave their family problems at home, but it makes us us. And I think that's really important, and I think a good employer will understand that, and they will learn a lot from it. On a practical level, will we see a continuance of more home working? We know that we certainly have to for the weeks, and I hate to say this, but I would probably say months to come. We've now got the furlough scheme running until the end of October, although it's going to be in a different shape. It's not going to be fully funded from August, but it is going to be there. So, you know, we've got more home working, that's a shadow of a doubt. But after all of this, and we come out of this and we come into a different normal, are we going to see more rise in requests for flexible working? Are we going to see more working from home? And there is, I would advocate something on that, is that there is a difference between real flexible working and working flexibly in a crisis. So at the moment, we are working flexibly in a crisis. We have to work from home because there is no option. But on the other side, people wanting to work from home when there is another option, that's a different thing, and that's a different approach. But at least one thing this does tell us is that we can do it. You know, it's not out of our radar. We can do it. So just wanted to a little bit of a reality check here. So yeah, don't underestimate the longer term impacts. The reality check is on people's psychological as well as physical health. Okay, that is going to be, don't underestimate how long term the psychological impacts on mental health and well-being might be. And I'll just leave that thought with you there. So in terms of what we can learn, I would say stay human and stay connected. Know your staff as individuals. We know that most businesses can adapt, and we feel sorry for those that don't. So I'm going to mention it. We feel sorry for the hairdressers, the barbers, the you know, the beauty salons. Yeah, it's hard. And also what we can learn is that there may be ongoing or hidden challenges. So just expect the unexpected. This just keeps on delivering for HR and our employees. Okay, and obviously, you know, I'm here as a point of contact, my business, we're here to help. There's ways of contacting me there. So that's on a long-term basis. But for now, Siobhan, are there any questions, or is there anything that you particularly want to delve into further with me?
Yes, absolutely, Alison. Firstly, thank you. I think what you shared has been really thought-provoking, and it shows what a fine balance it is between helping and supporting employees and getting it right for your business. And we've got some questions coming through. So I'm going to start off by asking you a couple of quite specific questions.
Okay.
So can an employee refuse to go back to the office because they're worried about doing that? One of our listeners has said that they've spoken to a client and an employee was worried about returning to the workplace. So what's the official position on that?
Okay, so this is a really, really interesting one. And this goes back to Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act. And you'll probably start seeing that quoted in the press, so the press will feed off on this. We've got in HR, we've got our wonderful new friend, I would say, Martin Lewis, who stirs up a lot on this as well, and causes us a lot of headaches. Now, the thing around this is that as an employer, you have to provide a safe working place. Now, how can you do that in this environment? It's very tricky, isn't it? So we've got the industry sector guidance that you need to look at. You need to produce a risk assessment on your workplace before anybody goes back. You need to consult with your workforce and engage with your workforce on that risk assessment. Okay, and at that point is where you will be driving down with individuals. What are their fears? What are their concerns about returning? And as I said previously, it is driving on that individual basis. Have they got underlying health conditions that you need to know about? And if they have, they need to continue with home working if they can, if they're shielding, or if it's other health conditions that aren't part of that shielding category, you need to delve into, actually, if you bring them back into the workforce, in terms of your risk assessment, what can you do to mitigate those risks? Can you put anything in place or not? And then ultimately, I mean, I can share something outside of this, but a fantastic resource that I have in my business is I tap into Daniel Barnett, who's just a legend. He's the best employment barrister that you could possibly want to be linked in with. He has done, he was on the Jeremy Vine show the other day, and there's a little video clip of him talking about the reasonableness of this, and he sums it up absolutely brilliantly. So first of all, the employer has to do this risk assessment, they have to consult, they have to understand all of those things, mitigate any risks. If an employee at the end of all of this says, well, actually, I still don't think it's safe, and they can't work from home and they don't want to work, it's fine. They don't have to come into work, but the ultimate thing is that you do not have to pay them. So they have to understand that if they are staying away and you've done everything that you can do to mitigate the risk, that they cannot continue to work, then it will be unpaid.
Thanks. Thank you, Alison. I'm just going to apologise again.
We've got
yeah, it is. We've got a few technical issues with the noise, so please bear with us if you can hear some interference there. Alison, I'm just going to ask you to repeat the name of the employment barrister. I think you said he was called Daniel Barnett. So that's somebody
correct.
that Daniel Barnett. So that's somebody that people could look out for, perhaps.
Absolutely,
okay.
He's a legend.
Okay, thank you for sharing his details. So a related question there is that previously employers perhaps put excuses forward or reasons forward for requests to work from home from employees to be rejected, but actually now the current crisis has demonstrated that a lot of those reasons are no longer valid. So that pushback perhaps is changing. How should employers now prepare for home working requests?
Well, yes, so people have a statutory right to request flexible working. I think it's after they've been employed for 26 weeks. So this is what I was saying. I think we're going to start seeing more requests, and it is going to be hard now for employers to be able to refuse that, where an employee has proved that they've successfully worked from home. There's the statutory legislation around this. I haven't got it up in front of me, but there are some set out in the legislation. There are a number of business reasons, valid business reasons, that you can turn down flexible working, and you would have to turn it down on one of those reasons. So it just has to be done on an individual case-by-case basis. But I would say that if somebody has been working successfully from home, it's going to be more difficult to turn them down. It might be it might be that you say, well, actually, for business continuity, working from home every day isn't going to be feasible, but we might be able to let you do it, say, once a week or once a fortnight, or so you might be able to come around to some negotiations on that.
So some interesting conversations ahead, I think, on that.
Really interesting conversations, and there's some legal things behind there. So I would say, as an employer, do take some advice. If you're unsure about it at all, take some advice, and we're here to help and support on that.
Okay, thank you, Alison. So the next question then is, if you have a new joiner, perhaps somebody who started just before lockdown, how do you balance any additional support that those new members of staff might need with also getting the hands-on help that you need with the projects that your business is needing to complete? So does that group of employees need a particular kind of help at the moment?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, it's that, how do you integrate them and engage them into the business? It's how do you do their induction? How do you translate that to online? Or, you know, we normally probably, they learn on the job in a lot of SMEs. How can they do that? I'd probably say you can still do that using technology. So you could still pair them up with a peer. They could do some of this working side by side while on a Teams call or a video call or a WhatsApp call or anything. So they could, you know, you might allocate, say, okay, we're going to have an hour whereby you're working remotely. I'll team you up with a peer, hour together, so that you can ask any questions, just like help with the induction on that way. It's about that transfer of knowledge, I guess, isn't it? So it's how do you get them upskilled when you're not physically seeing them? And obviously in some industries that will be more challenging than others, because each business is different.
Yeah. Do you have any, on a related question, do you have any additional guidance, or are there issues that people should be aware of if they are trying to recruit new members of staff?
In terms of, if you're an organisation that has to do things like safeguarding, or every organisation has to do right to work checks, I suppose that's an easier one to talk about, because that illustrates the point. So on a right to work check, you need to check that somebody is eligible to work in the UK. So you normally look at a physical passport, okay? And I say physical because there's certain things that you need to check for fraud to make sure that it's not a fraudulent passport. How do you do that remotely? You know, who knows? But some of the guidance on this is being relaxed, because it's saying we recognise that you cannot do this remotely. So they're saying that, you know, people can hold it up with a video call. You can ask certain questions. You log it. So what I would say at the moment is that you log what you have done. Then when you return to the workplace and you physically are able to meet with somebody, socially distancing, of course, at the moment, is that then you can do the physical check, and you've almost got like a check now and a secondary check when you return. So I don't know if that sufficiently answers the question, but those are the kinds of challenges that we're seeing.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's, you know, making sure that you're still following all the requirements, but adapting it to the conditions that we are all living and working within right now.
Yeah, of course, and making a note of the things that you need to follow up on later.
Yes, yeah, so things don't get overlooked and forgotten in the mix of whatever happens in the future. Okay, Alison, thank you so much. We are all very grateful for the knowledge and expertise you shared with us today. And, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Anyone who wants to prolong the discussion today, please head over to the LinkedIn Technology for Success business group, where you can share further ideas and connect with others. We are pretty much at the end of today's session now. So as a reminder, our next webinar will take place at 8:30 on Friday the 22nd of May, next Friday. So please do join us then, when Hazel and Pippa from Bishop Fleming Chartered Accountants will be joining us and giving their insights into how to drive your business forward with FinTech. Details are on the screen now, and you will find links to book into this on the emails that will follow today's webinar. So that just leaves me to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Alison and Julian. We'll look forward to seeing you at 8:30 a.m. next Friday. Good luck till then. Stay well, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.